Many thanks indeed for staying with us. Let's get on now and get to our second conversation this morning. It has to do with politics and security. We have two gentlemen right here in the studios with us. The MD, Debris Protection Services, security consultants as well. Dixon Osagie joins us live on the program. We also have Mr. Ayodele Adio, who's the National Publicity Secretary, Youth Party. Gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so let's begin with the politician here in our midst. Perhaps we should start with the fact that INEC has only just recognized 14 associations who in the next coming weeks will become parties. I believe this perhaps sounds like great news for you.
Well, I'm not sure why it's great news or otherwise, because I have argued in the last perhaps 6 to 7 years that, INEC really as an institution shouldn't have powers to register political parties unilaterally. I have argued in favor of the right of political parties to be formed without the usual ladders and hurdles that they have to scale. And even more importantly, I've argued for funding for political parties because, they do the important work of providing alternative ideas and providing, opposition to incumbent governance, which is a very important part of democracies across the world. So while there are 14 new political parties who have scaled, to the next stage, as it were, going from the news that was read earlier on your station, there's really and truly nothing to celebrate in that regard, because it's the fundamental right of Nigerians to associate. And it's the fundamental right of Nigerians to put together political parties as they were. It's just become a strange phenomenon in Nigeria where it's now become something worth celebrating, and it's largely because of how the Nigerian state creates a political climate that is hostile to opposition. And that's why we find ourselves trying to celebrate things that should just, be something that happens on a regular Friday.
But well, it's the fact that for INEC, these associations would have to meet certain requirements and all of that. So if perhaps the electoral umpire allows it, I wonder if you think that, because we have many associations in this country.
Yeah,
remember?
I agree with you. Like the requirements that are to be met aren't such. They are not esoteric requirements. They are basic requirements, right? And you're likely to be able to meet those requirements easily. I understand that there has to be, some sort of, what's the word now? Not all political parties should be able to compete at a national level, for instance. There probably has to be certain criteria for you to meet to present a candidate for a presidential election. Perhaps there has to be certain criteria to meet to put a person on the ballot for governorship elections, for local government elections, as it were. But what I disagree with fundamentally is that there has to be some sort of high barrier for entry to set up political parties.
Absolutely. Let's bring in the security man. And one of the major things I want us to discuss is the fact of what's playing out around the world. You see what's playing out in Nepal. You see what's playing out, what played out in Kenya, and we can go on and all of that. And it's about the management of the polity that degenerates into what we find. In fact, for instance, what's playing out in Nepal is a question of the young people saying, these guys, you're corrupt. We're living in poverty. Your children are Nepal babies, having the best time of their life. Do something. And then things escalated to the point where they banned social media. You can go anywhere, but don't go near social media for Gen Zs. And then, to add insult to injury, they now killed 19 of them. And then see how things have degenerated. Dixon, Mr. Dixon, let's talk about what you observe as to the political climate in Nigeria and what we should be cautious about.
Well, my observation is terrible because the links between governance failure and security breakdown is undeniable. When administrations neglect the fundamentals of accountability, welfare of the people, security of the people, you experience something like this, because most of these political elites just think that Nigerians are fools. You come on air, promise the people that you're going to tie or build a road, or tie a road in the sky, you do X, Y, Z, and you don't achieve that. The people are watching, the people are listening, you understand? And sometimes it marvels me when an incident occurs, they will want to come and give a disclaimer, But, if we want to excel in our security formation, it must start from leadership and character. We don't have political character. We have terrible characters in our political system. Mostly, not all of them. Because I've seen political leaders, dividing the nation, Sometimes their speech, sometimes their campaign mantra, and sometimes the way they, engage the people. We've seen political leaders, negotiating with terrorists. We've seen them, negotiating with the devil, because when you negotiate with the devil, it's a sign of weakness. You are telling them that we don't have the capability and capacity to decimate the threat bedeviling Nigeria from the four parts of our country. Despite the fact that we have been facing multi-dimensional security threats, we must understand as a country we're not weak. But our political system is positioning us as if the Nigerian state is very, very weak. And our institution as well is in a terrible state, Our security system, is a terrible state, because I see no reason how sometimes you read on news that 5 soldiers, 10 soldiers, 10 police officers, 20 officers being killed by these terrorists. Last week or sometimes 2 weeks ago, I saw some terrorist group coming for peace talk, and they came with their arms and ammunition. The police officers were there, some soldiers were there, the politicians were there, just to talk peace deal. After the peace deal, they went back home safely with their arms and ammunition. And I say, hey, this country is a joke. Now, there is no room for terrorism. Whoever, creates a state of unrest within the Nigerian space must be eliminated. It's very clear. Anything that poses threat to human life must be eliminated. You don't negotiate. You don't substitute. You take it out. You take it off. And that's why I appreciate some countries of the world that, see security as a very serious business. Oh, some people think security is expensive. If security is expensive, try danger. So what that implies is that we need to start, building a formidable state. And our politicians need to also be very careful. Because in the last election, we've seen a lot of people snatching ballot boxes. Who sent them? I didn't send them. I'm not a politician. I don't think you sent them, Geoffrey. Someone sent them. Who sent them? So if you keep on building such character, you are telling these people that it's okay to commit crime in the Nigerian space. You are telling them that crime is fine, crime is okay. So we must bring our people, our political leaders to book, and we must caution them, because anything that goes wrong within the Nigerian space, I tell you, it's going to affect everybody.
Ms. Adio, you are not just a politician, you wear many caps, communication strategist, policy analyst, and I like to feel the pulse as far as the nexus of national security and politics is concerned, because we saw what played out in 2023, and when we held some persons accountable, and some of the remarks they told us was, we cannot be defined by those moments. Those are the words, we cannot be defined by those moments. But people got emotive in that moment. People got killed in that moment because of what you said, did, or allowed. What are we dealing with here? Because we need to sound the alarm now that there's sanity.
Well, I would even disagree that there's any sense of sanity, because we're facing existential threats that are largely triggered by politicians. And I'll give you, examples. I was watching your station, I think over the weekend. The ADC tried to hold an event here in Lagos, and their members were brutally attacked. I even phoned one of my friends who had set up, a medical outreach program, to engage residents of Ali Mosho at that event, and she had 8 stitches. Because she was attacked by thugs who were led in, or supposedly led in by the policemen, because the police just stood there and watched the brutal attack of ordinary Nigerians, defenseless Nigerians who wanted to serve their community in Ali Mosho. Now, this has been the trend for a number of years, and I would argue that it seems that the average Nigerian politician doesn't have a sense of history to appreciate how these events had led to large-scale violence and complete breakdown of law and order in our country. This was the exact climate upon which a widespread breakdown and order happened in the Western region in 1964. Many would even argue that that large-scale breakdown and order, out of state repression of opposition politicians, had the direct linkage to the civil war about 2 years after. And if you look even more recently, the rise of every non-state actor in this group, every non-state actor that you can think of, traced their origins to state and political repressions. every non-state actor. That should send a signal. The Daily Trust, for instance, did an interview in 2021 with the bandits that kidnapped the Kankara boys, Anwar Daudawa. And he said in that particular interview that his cattle were taken away from him by security men. He tried appeasing them, hundreds of his cattle, and he was left poor. And that was the first time he sold his remaining assets and bought a gun for the first time to begin banditry. The next year, Bello Truji was interviewed by Daily Trust newspapers. And in that interview, and I quote, he gave the example that 1,000 of the cattle of his family were taken by security operatives. His family went to court and it couldn't find retrieve. And he asked the reporter in that question, where does a common man in this country find justice? And that led them to take up arms against the Nigerian state. You remember in June 12, 2009, when Muhammad Yusuf gave the open letter and declaration to the Nigerian government, where he was claiming after 18 of his members had been killed by the Operation Strike that was set up in Maiduguri at the time, sorry, Operation Flush, if I remember correctly, when his members were indiscriminately killed on the streets of Maiduguri. And he declared that speech on June 12, 2009, which led to the first uprising of Boko Haram in this country. So you can trace instability, insecurity, to state repression in this country. And our politicians do not seem to learn from history. So there's no doubt that if this trend continues, I heard you engage Chief Jele Momodu, if this trend continues where state or incumbents create a hostile environment for opposition politicians, where the police are used as instruments to oppress ordinary Nigerians, it's a recipe for disaster. And you know, you're not going to have a state of security in that kind of political climate.
I was just going to ask if you agree with him that bandits, we should not have any sort of engagements with bandits, because just yesterday as well, in Kaduna State, the state government had to sort of reintegrate some of the bandits into the community. So I wonder what your position is. Do you agree with him?
The reason you are engaging with bandits is because the state lacks the capacity to effectively and decisively deal with banditry in this country. It's as simple as ABC. You don't engage what you think you can crush. And that's the crux of the matter. Academics call the state we are in Nigeria an anocracy, where you have a weak state that is incapable of protecting the peace of the country.
When you say we don't have the capacity, I mean, people like him will not agree with you.
Let's not theorize it. If you have the capacity, you would have effectively and decidedly dealt with insecurity.
Because referring to Dele Momodu and many Nigerians, they'll say, look, we have some of the best, some of the finest soldiers.
I do not doubt that. Perhaps it's political will. Perhaps it's low funding, but look at the state of your police, for instance. Look at the state of your police stations in this country. So you have a state, a security setup in this country that is set up for regime security to protect the elites and their interests and to protect their stay in power, and not the ordinary Nigerian.
Let's take it to Dixon, Mr. Dixon. Let's talk about what you observe, because he has drawn a nexus of what the economy, more like the economy, and what led to instability and banditry. There's also the part of the rule of law, the ability to get justice. What inference can you draw from there?
Well, I think the criminal justice system is very weak. Crime and punishment works hand in hand, you know. When people don't get punished for crime they commit...
Is it that it is weak, or it is perceived to be weak?
Perceived to be weak. You know, I was speaking on an international forum of recent, and there was a guy that committed a crime. Okay, what's his name? The guy in Finland. You know, it took the Polish government, the Finnish government about 3 months to run that,
yes,
Simon Ekpa. Yeah. And I was very impressed. But here in our country, we have Evans in the prison the past 7 years, and that tells you that most people think justice delayed, justice denied. For me, I think justice delayed is a failure on our judicial system. And like I rightly said, crime and punishment works hand in hand. Crime flourishes in the absence of punishment, and that is it. My friend here made some fantastic points, which I agree, and I can tell you and communicate to you that we have the capability, we have the capacity as a country. What is missing there is political will. What is missing there, I think, is we're not ready. That's just true, we're not ready. And Also, we've also commercialized it because people are making more money from it. You don't want this space of insecurity to come to an end, you know. Like banditry, for example, terrorism, for example. You see criminal elements who killed my brothers and sisters, those who decimate our soldiers, killed our officers. I have friends that are colonels, brigadier generals, major generals that were killed by these terrorists. And at the end of the day, you set up a campaign and classified it as repentant terrorists. Who told you, or who tells you that a terrorist can repent from his evil ways? And you project them to the society. If you project such people to the society, that means the society is being messed up by these people. Any person or any criminal or terrorist that don't get punished for a crime he or she commits, I tell you, other groups will spring up and say, hey, Nigeria is a state whereby you come, you know, do whatever you want to do. Then they can also grant you amnesty. We should start looking at punishment as a very, very serious business.
So we're trying to trace origin here.
Causative factors,
yes,
okay?
Yes, causative factors, as you put it. Okay. And the causative factor we're trying to look at here is the activities of the political class.
Exactly.
When elections are rigged, when numbers, we've seen miraculous numbers that we cannot explain. He will be smiling because he understands. He saw what played out recently. And when the justice system, we're wondering what is going on as far as all of that is playing out. So yes, that word came out of my mouth. When the political class are easy to say, go to court, and now Nigerians are making a mockery of that entire. I do not want to make a mockery of our judiciary because we need a strong judiciary.
Exactly.
What does that portend to national security? Because nothing just happens. We are facing the building blocks now. So our job now as media is to set the agenda to say, let's have this conversation. What do you make of it?
He made some fantastic points on the causative factors when Bello Tiji was being interviewed, and I don't know how the journalist got to him and interviewed him. Causative factors, you know, when an incident transpired, we don't look at who commits the crime or why was the crime committed. We don't look at who commits the crime, where or what happened. We look at why was this crime committed? Why did this guy decide to take arms? And that boils down to, you know, instability. That boils down to our political leadership-wise. So now, for me, I strongly believe that the reason why crime is flourishing in the Nigerian state is because most of these guys just capitalize on the vulnerability of our security agents and also on the vulnerability of our national borders, or porosity of our national borders. Because crime or security is achievable. You know, when you look at the triangle of crime, there are three factors responsible in the triangle of crime. In the triangle of crime, the motivated offender, the terrorists or the bandits, the opportunity, you know, and the target. Our citizens are the target. The opportunity is the time they have to strike to succeed. When you cut off this criminal opportunity, or when you cut off this opportunity, it will be very difficult for these guys to commit crime. And now, one of the reasons why this criminal acts keep on springing up is because of the lack of crisis management. You know, in Nigeria, if anything transpired, the government is very quick to send in the police, very quick to send in the military. They fail to understand that the use of force must take note, always be the last resort after exhausting every mechanism to, you know, bring things to a state of peace. Then you can apply force. We saw what happened in Lekki toll gate, and every 20th of October you see our policemen at the gate trying to, you know, ensure that things don't go wrong. So if we have an effective crisis management system in place, the incident that transpired in 2009 in the area of the founder of Boko Haram, it would have happened. Then the guys that claimed that his cartels were missing, it would have happened. So I would strongly advise that our Nigerian government or the security agents should start looking at crisis management very effectively, so that you don't go and manage crisis and you tend to escalate it and things comes to a state of mess.
Let's bring the conversation to the politician here. Walk us through some of your experiences as a politician in this part of the world. Because I imagine that my colleague was already referring to some of the experiences you've had in very recent times. I don't know if he's referring to the last local government elections here in Lagos, but walk us through some of your experiences being in the party that you are now, and perhaps have there been instances where you've felt some sort of oppression?
Well, well, you don't really have, you see, the problem, I don't even know where to start from, because you don't even have a level playing field. It's even worse at a local government level, because politics at that level is non-existent. The state uses its apparatus, its infrastructure to determine what happens at a local government level. But I think that the most important thing here isn't just my experience. It's rather the experience of millions of Nigerians, the outcome of what supposedly has been governance since 99. You started this conversation with Nepal. And the truth is, once people are left out of economic opportunities, once people, see, humans can take unbelievable pain. They can bear, they can postpone, you know, prosperity or whatever you. What humans cannot take is a loss of hope. And the moment you have a political elite that have badly managed the growth and prosperity of a country to the extent that there is a loss of hope from the youthful demography in that country, it becomes a recipe for disaster. It is the reason why people are more willing to go through the Sahara Desert to get to Italy than they are to work up the ladder in their own country. It is the reason why, despite the efforts of NAPTIP, you have young girls who are being deceived to go to all these countries across the world where they are used as sex slaves than they are to climb the social ladder in their country. It's a loss of hope, it's a loss of opportunity. And we collectively, I like how, you know, Godfrey continues to insist on agenda setting. We have to collectively set the agenda and move the conversations away, the rhetorics away from where politicians want it to be. They want to be talking about North-South divide, about is the turn of one group or another, and move the conversation away from bread and butter, which is the crust of the matter. Millions of people are out of job. You know, it's difficult to do business in this country. There aren't opportunities for our young people. Housing is getting expensive. Young people cannot afford to pay rents, not to talk of even owning homes. Yeah, you can't buy cars as a young graduate today. So there's no social ladder to climb. So these for me are the issues, and this is where our energies should be dissipated in not just holding the political class to account, but in finding the motivation to even switch the political elites to a class that even serve the interest of the majority. Because clearly, if we continue on this trajectory, we can't keep praying that may Nepal not befall us. We can't keep praying that may the Arab Spring not befall us, when the ingredients every day are adding up to that boiling point. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. You know, otherwise we'll just find ourselves, you know, where the Kenyans found themselves a few months ago. Today it's Nepal. We don't know where it's going to go tomorrow.
So you're not optimistic at all about these reforms. I mean,
what reforms?
The economic reforms by the current administration. you're not optimistic at all. I mean,
the
president has said there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I hate to hold brief for this government, but the president has said there's light at the end of the tunnel. Look, just exercise some patience. And some people argue that all of the candidates of all of the parties, the major parties, had agreed to remove fuel subsidies. So you don't think there is light at the end of the tunnel?
There is light at the end of tunnel if there is a balance, if there's a balancing act in the pursuit of these reforms that you're going through. We're not the first to go through these reforms. The Asians went through these reforms in 1997 when there was a currency crisis across that entire region. And we're pursuing the exact same policies that countries like Indonesia at the time pursued, where, you know, they removed petrol subsidy. You know, there were austerity measures, governments cut spending, they got bailouts from IMF. But the fundamental difference was that these countries, initially when they pursued austerity measures and removed petrol subsidy, protests broke out across the countries, riots engulfed everywhere. And the government had to then bring back targeted subsidies, kerosene for rural people, rice subsidies for the poor, and that was how they were able to stabilize the economy. And in 2 years, Indonesia, for instance, was already growing back at 5%. So the question now is, yes, you have had austerity for 2 years. Yes, you have removed petrol subsidies. In quote, you have saved billions, and you're declaring meeting your revenue targets. The question the common man in the street is asking you, where has that surplus gone to? Where are the welfareist programs that are supposed to cushion the effect of these policies for us to believe that, you know, in the long term we'll be better off? And, you know, like they say, in the long term we're all dead.
I pray we don't get to that level at all.
Let's wind down on this. For us, is, as far as this conversation is concerned, is that we don't degenerate into a crisis. Because what he's mentioned is what I call the classic building blocks. I don't like to say God forbid carelessly.
No.
So, but I will say God forbid that we have a Nepal on our hand, because where are we going to go to? So if you were to speak from a professional security man point of view, what would be the message to politicians who some of them are tone deaf to these concerns?
Well, we have a long way to go. First of all, I think good governance and responsible rhetoric is very important because when the people don't, see what the government is doing, they tend to go into the way of crime. And most of these guys, they want to enrich themselves very quickly. So for me, I think responsible rhetoric is also very important because most times what you say, tends to build the people, tends to unite the people, or sometimes tends to divide us. I've listened to some interviews from some political leaders, and such, rhetoric, is divisive in nature. And when you have a divisive rhetoric, that tells you that the people are warming up for war. They are building up to, they are warming up to, to put the state in a state of mess. So for me, if we have a very effective governance, have an effective security forces, it all boils down on security management. Geoffrey, because we won't be talking about insecurity, if we have an effective security measures in place or security system in place, because what we have in place is a reactionary measures, not responsive measures. If we have an effective responsive measures, I tell you the security system, the security leadership will take the lead. Absolutely. When the security leadership take the lead, I tell you the politicians will not mess up. So accountability from the horizontal and vertical plane is very, very important at this point.
We're totally out of time. But must thank you both for coming on the program. The MD of the Breeze Securities and Security Consultant.
Thank you.
Mr. Dixon Osaje, Ayodele Adio, who has multiple caps, politician, communication strategist, policy analyst. Now. Thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking with Samson Itodo, who is very... of course, you know him, but when it comes to election management, as far as this hurdle is concerned, 14 political associations now may be on their way to becoming parties. In just a moment, stay with us.